Previously on Hop Heroes. Yeah, today we are talking House and Powers of X, the new X-Men story arc, and we are drinking Celebration IPA from Sierra Nevada. JR and I will be drinking. Zach is amidst his lumberjack cleanse, so more power to you on that, big dog.
It's exactly what I thought. It's not
hoppy water.
Yeah,
so you love it.
It's like someone
wet cereal.
Exactly. They just put like a bathtub full of hops and put water in there and let it set over the weekend.
Sounds like it's not the greatest ever in the world.
It's not the greatest ever in the world, but it's an easy drinkable beer and it's good, and it has a holiday theme to it.
They want to be recognized as a sovereign nation.
Yes.
And they also want mutants all around the world to have diplomatic immunity and then be transferred to Krakoa. And I would like to interrupt this program for
ahead.
1 second to ask Jordan one question I've been waiting all month to ask. Where is Gambit, my guy? You know, I don't think you guys are going to survive this. And then Cyclops is like, well, does it have to be done? And then Professor X is like, yes, it does. And then he's like, well, then it'll be done. And then he just like, it's like, oh, it's so badass.
And Zach sent that panel to all of us like 3 different times.
On Krakoa, he finds a way to literally resurrect mutants from death. And in doing so, he saves the strike team, who he sent out to destroy Sentinels while they were in early development. They got sent there, they kill the Sentinels, but they die in the process, and then Professor X resurrects them on Krakoa in time. That's literally where we're at right now.
Yes.
Hop heroes, saving the day. One comic book at a time. That was awful. That was pretty good. That was terrible. Hop heroes. Anything of this? Or just mix your voice in, or put a verse in? I don't want to take the mandolin out. I can just do that in the editing side. Just take out the mandolin and the voice. The whole thing, really. Alright, start the show.
And so now everything's kind of settled, and they're not peaceful. I mean, almost. And they're creating this council of like their new government of Krakoa, and their first call of action was what to do with Sabretooth, because he had broken mankind's law, but now they're judging, and he's the first one up for judgment. And I thought that the choices for the council or the board of directors, or whatever, was very interesting, because they have Xavier, Magneto, they have Apocalypse, they have fucking Nightcrawler on there, which was bizarre.
I feel like Nightcrawler is like a spiritual leader.
Yeah, he's like the shaman, or like he has like the.
He's the only one that has any type of like religious or theological like expertise, and so I kind of felt like that was the role he was playing. He's kind of like the priest or whatever.
Yeah, and they're broken up into
sense.
like seasons, right? That's how they're broken up into type and season. So they break that up. And Nightcrawler is what season? Was he like autumn or something? Isn't that how they do it? So I'm looking.
Yes.
Okay. The Quiet Council of Krakoa, the 12-person ruling council of Krakoa that decides how the mutant nation handles external conflicts and the eternal laws of the island itself. There is some debate as to whether this council will continue in I can't read that, proprietary of some other systems or government, or replace it. And it goes Professor X number 1, Magneto number 2, the Autumn, and then it kind of gives you some other gaps in there. But this is where Professor Xavier goes around the world of all mutants and tells them, hey, we're doing this, either be a part of it or stay away, right? He kind of becomes like a hologram and kind of tells everybody those things. And he actually
before we branch off of the council, I just had a question for Zach. Why wasn't Cyclops on this council, bro?
Bro, I knew that I was going to get this question, and so I've come prepared. There's a reason why I am calling Cyclops the God King of War. There's a reason, and here's why.
War's a pretty big
Cyclops.
I think that the head of War would be.
Cyclops is not on the council. You're correct, which is odd because he's such a leader. But what position does Cyclops have? Let's look at it. He is the captain of the great captains, right? So, let me read what the great captains are in Krakoa. While the Quiet Council is the recognized ruling authority on Krakoa, when there is a state-related excursion or in times of conflict or war, the great captains of Krakoa assume the responsibility of defending the state. In the field, a captain has total control. Among the captains, the captain commander is considered first among equals. He is the captain commander of the great captains. Now, so basically he's like the general of all the armies. Now, but there is in this doctrine a written down kind of rule that states if Krakoa is in a state of war, the commanders take control. Then, who takes control of the commanders? Cyclops does, dude. So he would literally run Krakoa. It's the story of Julius Caesar, bro. Julius Caesar's the general of the Roman armies, and then what happens? They're in war. Julius Caesar creates essentially a panic, and he says, listen, guys, I know that we have a democracy and a council, but because we're in war, I need to just rule the country for a little bit while we figure this out, and then he never lets go of power. He becomes the god king of war. Cyclops is literally the god king of war. He is Julius Caesar of the X-Men, because if they're ever at war, who's in charge? Fucking Cyclops,
is that
bro.
a good thing?
Gambit's not even in the story.
Are you...
Cyclops is the god king of war. Let's
Are you
go.
saying that Krakoa consistently lives in like the state of martial law? Like
I'm saying that there is in their doctrine a martial law kind of failsafe written in which
whenever war
Cyclops
happens
would take control of the rest of the entire state.
Is this doctrine
wrong?
scribed by Zach Barlow, or is this an official document that you've seen?
JR,
Like,
confirm or deny.
It's in
I
the
read it straight from the book. I did not just make this up.
written by Jonathan Hickman, the god of
Oh,
comedy.
the god king of war,
So he's Julius Caesar.
dude. Yeah. Cyclops, the god king of war. You heard it here first.
Well, in the sequel soon to come, there's going to be a gladiator that rises in this martial law state, and his name is going to be Remy LeBeau. He's going to he's going to fuck Caesar's wife and then take over the land. Back to you, JR.
All right.
No, okay. I love that response, dude. You came prepared. You fucking did you do research for the doctrine of what Cyclops' position was?
Bro, no, it's in the book. I read it and I was like, oh, no fucking way. And then I was like, because my first thing was, oh, Cyclops isn't in the council. What the fuck? And then I read that, and then I was like, oh, let me go ahead and make notes on that when Jordan asked me, why isn't Cyclops in the council? So yeah, I
don't sound like that.
I came ready.
Well played. Well played.
All right. So anyway, we're getting towards the end here. The council is developed. The leaders are developed. We saw what Professor Xavier has done with the information from Mora and preparing himself and the team to overcome. And we're starting to kind of see what the outcome's going to be. You know, they want to avoid this future with Nimrod taking over. They want to avoid this humans versus X-Men, Sentinels, but all the while the story with the Phalanx or Phalanx, where this above being is starting to take over, is starting to kind of creep into the storylines, and that plays a bigger role at the end. So I just wanted to mention that because that's kind of a big reveal that we're gonna probably do. It's probably gonna be a really big spoiler alert.
Yeah. Spoilers to come. The Phalanx kind of threw me off. I was just really trying to understand what they were, and I don't think you're really supposed to fully understand what they are. They're kind of like a superior being that absorbs your energy of your planet and all your consciousness, and you become them. But at the same time, you no longer exist, but you exist forever.
You become like it's assimilated, right? We've been.
Is it kind of like the Tokyo Ghost, like your upload to the cloud?
That's how I thought of it.
Yeah.
You get digitized essentially.
But you have to be chosen. Like you have to be worthy. If you're not worthy, then they just kill you, and then you don't even become nothing. Like it's called
Yeah.
Ascension. So basically, they're calling themselves the ultimate. And Hickman kind of describes how there's different levels of everything, and he actually gives a list of everything. You know, the Phalanx, the Stronghold, and then the Dominion. And I think there's something that's going into the Dawn of X, because all of this stuff that's going on is the future X-Men stories, which is the Dawn of X, you know, coming up, and everything that they're fighting for is starting to be revealed. But like I said, now that the council's been decided, they've decided that Sabretooth is. They're gonna judge Sabretooth. That's who they get to judge him. They get to
judge him. They do. Let's
and
just say that
they get rid of him, which is a very intense scene. And
they,
it's like he's crying the whole time too. It's like
he was like, "I'm gonna kill all you guys," blah blah blah, and they all mutually agree to basically exterminate him, but they don't murder him. They trap him in the depths of Krakoa for however long they decide. They say they don't even give a timeline. Like, maybe we'll revisit this, but for now, just open up the hole of hell, basically. And it cracks open. He falls into this pit, and he's just there forever.
Right.
Exile.
Yeah, exile. Exactly. That's borderline worse. I mean, he's gonna go mad down there.
And what they do is kind of come up with these 3 rules: make more mutants, murder no man, and respect the sacred land. And that's basically
those are the only laws of Krakoa.
Yeah, and they want them to, you know, I think there's a lot that goes into that, particularly murder no man, because they don't want to be seen as a villain. They don't want to be seen, the humans, but ultimately it doesn't matter. But they at least don't want them to be the cause of that fear. But that's, you know, too bad.
Yeah, and they're also trying to avoid a timeline that they know doesn't work. Like, there was a timeline in which they decided, all right, let's just murk all the humans and then be the rulers of this world. But then what happens? The Avengers fight them, and the Avengers kill them. And so that's, you know, so they know that doesn't work. So they have to strike a balance between, you know, being a sovereign nation and being kind of dominant force in the world, and not, you know, just killing humans for no reason. And so I feel like that's the balance they're trying to strike by saying murder no man.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Yeah, it's just it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, is there anything else you want to close out on the story? That's pretty much the...
So I think we should give the big reveal towards the end on why the Dawn of X is starting off this way, why this is kind of a launching pad for the new storylines to come out. And it begins with Moira and it ends with Moira, and kind of her timelines and what she finds out. And ultimately, they don't win ever. There is no timeline where X-Men win. They fail every single time. And Professor Xavier and Magneto and basically the main people know this, but are keeping it a secret from everybody else. So the celebrations, the whole the new ideas that they came up with, respawning, all that stuff means nothing, because in the end they're still going to be dominated by another group of people, regardless if it's humans or robots or they become extinct. And I think that's the big spoiler alert for the story, because that launches you into the next phase of X-Men.
Yeah. And I also quickly want to touch on the Phalanx kind of scene towards the end. So the Phalanx scene is another timeline in which Moira lives, and I'm not entirely sure where it sits, except I know that it's, you know, far, far, far in the future, way, way, way far in advance, like 1,000 million years in the future. And in that timeline, humans have kind of ascended. They've learned to, like, use science to make them, you know, better beings and you know, competitive with mutants. Honestly, that's why that one character that we haven't really touched on at all, the librarian, he's an ascended human. He's a scientifically modified human, and humans kind of rule this world. And the Phalanx is getting ready to, you know, digitize that world. And you have a scene similar to one that we've discussed previously, in which Wolverine and Moira are there, and you know, Wolverine ends up killing the librarian and then killing Moira, and Moira kind of takes that knowledge back. Do you guys remember this scene?
Yes.
Yeah. They're the only two remaining from the.
Exactly.
They're like pets. They're like zoo animals.
Yeah.
They're in the Krakoa becomes instead of like an Eden, it becomes a cage, like a
Yeah.
place.
So but in current times, Professor X and Magneto are convinced that it's not going to happen this time, but we kind of see that they lose again.
Well, that's her sixth life, actually. That's her sixth timeline. And there was kind of a gap through the story in her timelines. Like, what happens in her sixth? Because there's no explanation at all. There is none. So this is the explanation of her sixth life. And basically, it's the one where she finds out there is, all of her lives, there is no winning outcome for the X-Men. And so that's what she goes, Wolverine kills her and sends her back to tell. And that's
the beginning.
Yes, and that's where the
when
lie
she goes
comes
back
up.
to Xavier.
Yep. And so Professor Xavier knows that there is no winning outcome, but of course it's him with his hope and Magneto with his violence.
And so he legitimately believes that this Krakoa timeline is the one winning outcome.
What they're hoping, but he's buying time.
Yeah, I feel like they know,
but they're buying time.
What I took away from it was life, and it's just the story of death. Like, there's no outcome where we win. Like, we're not going to overcome, we're not going to prevail. But this Krakoan idea is the best possible temporary solution while we live our lives.
Try to figure it out.
Yeah, or I mean, obviously that's the goal. But
yeah.
Ultimately, what we're doing right now is not as great as what we could be doing. But even no matter what the final punctuation is on the end of the sentence, this is going to be the best story that we can tell.
Yep.
And that's kind of the route that they went. So when you say that this will launch the Dawn of X, are you saying the Dawn of X is going to be post their destruction, or like Krakoa, the life there is going to be like the whole new storyline, like what they build and what they create there?
This is the whole new way of the direction of X-Men. Like, I've actually read X-Men #1, and it's literally Cyclops eating dinner with his family. It's Jean Grey, his dad, his brothers, and it literally
sounds miserable.
They're on the blue side. They're on the moon, and
sounds like a good time.
It's basically just it's going to be another tragic story for sure. Where they're going to have to fight for survival, but it's basically, the platform of this is the direction X-Men's going in. And this was them figuring out how to get there. So this was all to figure out the next step. Who are they going to fight next? And they're thinking it's probably going to be like the Dominions or some kind of celestial being that wants to take the mutants out because they're scared of them. Something like that.
Fuck.
We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
Well, I hope this one makes it to theaters, because like we were saying with that strike team scene, like there's a lot of epic storylines they can create with this.
Yeah.
And if this is the new film arc they go with, it's gonna be fucking good.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's our story time. That's what the House of X and the Powers of 10 kind of in. And do you want to give the order that you should read them in, JR? I mean, I guess it actually tells you.
Yeah, you can see it. If you get the first book, it'll tell you exactly the order.
And maybe we'll get Vinny to post it or something on the Instagram.
Yeah, they do alternate. It's kind of funky. It's interesting how they release, but if you read them like the correct way, it all makes sense. So that takes us to our next segment, Beneath the Ink. Zach, what do you got for us this week?
So I thought that it was interesting that the X-Men were kind of always constantly threatened by this higher intelligence, and specifically either the Sentinels or Nimrod or the Phalanx, and they all were artificially intelligent kind of species. But the one thing I realized or noticed is that the solution to their battle with this artificial intelligence on Krakoa is essentially an artificial intelligent model. So artificial intelligence, like the threat of it, the fear of it, is that once any machine becomes aware of itself, it can instantly become immortal, because it can instantly copy itself. It can copy itself, and because of the cloud, without getting too technical, because the cloud exists, once it's aware, you can never get rid of it, because the cloud exists all around the world, and it can just copy itself all over the world constantly, and you can never get rid of it. And that becomes like obviously a threat for a lot of reasons. The X-Men's kind of solution to this through Krakoa is a very similar model. They go to Sinister, they get a database, right? They have Professor X use these genes as copies, and then when somebody dies, they just re-upload another X-Men through the Krakoan system with the 5. And I just thought that was like a real interesting kind of dynamic. And I wasn't sure if that was on purpose or not, but I felt like them using an artificial intelligent model to like buy time from an artificial intelligent enemy was just really interesting. And I think that there's like a ton of artificial intelligence, enemies in society and culture. You got Skynet from Terminator. That's a big one. And just a ton more. But I don't know. I just thought that was an
what was the Space
thing.
Odyssey? Was his name Hank? Or 2001
Hank.
A Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
I think it's
Tron.
something.
Tron's another one.
Yeah, Tron.
Yeah.
So that is really. I didn't think of it like AI, but we are basically just using bodies as shells and replacing the consciousness
And
over
re-uploading
over again
them.
and re-uploading. So it's basically like the whole life aspect of it is out the window, and it's just basically creating a cloud. That is crazy. I didn't think about that. Mind blown. So, do you think that that's the right path to take to battle it? If you have to take out AI, use AI against itself? You're Professor X right now. No, you're the God of War right now.
I think it successfully buys time. But I also think that I wonder if somehow they themselves don't become the Phalanx. Like I wonder if, because like what happens when you do that is that you create a repository of consciousness, and as mutants continue to be, because like their first law is create more mutants. So with creating more mutants, so does grow their database, so does grow their backup of consciousness, and with a single kind of point source of so many backs up of consciousness, I wonder if it gets to a point where it can overwhelm Professor Xavier, and then he just starts to be like, you know what? The earthly world isn't worth it because we always lose, but somewhere where we won't lose is digitally in this cerebro, in this repository. In where these consciousness lives is actually the paradise. The real physical world is not. We always lose here. So let me just start taking more, digitizing, and then he himself somehow becomes some Phalanx. So I guess what I'm saying is that I feel like when you try to like recreate an AI, you yourself can become an AI. Like you can become the enemy in which you fight.
That's very interesting. I love that concept. I guess I'm a little confused on the first law. Like create more mutants is the first law, but you're on an island. Like the resources are there, but are they unlimited? Like I don't know. I feel like population shouldn't be your number one goal. Like survival and population, they can coincide, but they're not necessarily a mutual benefactor of each other, you know?
Yeah, but I also think that they've lost a ton of mutants along the way. So I feel like their numbers are pretty down. And so I think that, if you're trying to become a nation state, one of the first things that you'd want to do is fill out your numbers. You know what I mean? Like that legitimizes everything. And if you're down in numbers, then it makes sense that your first law would be, bring people over. It's like, if you think about the United States in historical context, when people first came over here and decided like we want our independence, one of the first things we did is we started advertising to all other countries in the world, like, hey, there's so many resources here. There's gold over here, and there's fields you can come and, tow and farm, and the American dream. Like we sold the American dream to the rest of the world, and in doing so what we did is we opened our doors because we wanted people to come, because we needed people. That's what a nation state needs. So when you're first establishing a nation, it makes sense that they would say, hey, like we're trying to make more mutants, because that's what establishes a nation.
At a certain point, then you try to shut the doors.
Then you try to shut, yeah. Then once you get established, you try to shut the doors, and then things get weird. But I feel like at this point in time in their history, they're not even thinking about that. They're just trying to fill out their numbers.
I guess it just seems a little short-sighted for people that have literally seen the future, you know. But maybe that's a strength. Maybe they know that they need to do that. I guess you're right. It would also be cool to see all the different kind of mutant powers they could create, because like that's the one thing with like mutants, reproducing mutants is kind of like rolling the dice. I'm like, what kind of power do I get? It's like rolling a character in D&D. You never know what you're gonna have. Yeah, dude, that's cool. All right. Well, that's a very, very awesome concept. Let's go around for craft or trash. So. Zach, how about you start us off? You know, where did this story arc land for you?
It's good. It's really fucking good. It's pretty confusing at first. Like, I had to, like, spend some time. I read it, and then I had to kind of reread it, and then I had to, you know, do some research onto it to see what other people were saying about it. It definitely wasn't something that I just read one time, and it was just like, all right, I got it. There's, like, so many moving pieces, and there's so many different timelines, and then there's also things that you notice a second read-through that you didn't notice a first read through that like kind of helps you solidify an understanding of it. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. It's just, it's just, there's a lot going on. So, but I loved it. I mean, there's scenes that I didn't forget. Cyclops is a fucking savage. And yeah, man, I really liked it. I thought it was amazing, and I would love to. I don't think they'd be able to do it in theaters like the entire thing, because I just feel like there's so much time travel, there's so many different timelines, like it can get really confusing. But there's certain scenes like the one that we touched on with the Strike Force. It's basically just like Saving Private Ryan but with fucking X-Men, and it's just like
would you say it could be a Disney Plus series?
Dude, yeah. Anything could be a Disney Plus series at this point. I love Disney Plus. Yeah, I thought it was great. I give it a 9. It's good. It's okay. Craft.
There we go. All right, JR.
Yeah, I kind of the same as Zach. You know, I read it twice. I listened to other people read it, so you know, I got a run through about 3 times to kind of get more and more. And the more and more you dig, the more and more you got to dig more to get more answers. I mean, the Professor X and the Phantom X body swap, that was something that came out of nowhere, you know. And I love Phantom X in the X-Force. There's a series runs where Rick Remender writes, and he's in X-Force, and so that just those things alone, and then kind of this way that Jonathan Hickman writes. I've always loved the way he's written stuff. I mean, I've got almost everything except for the Ultimate Fantastic Four stuff that he's written in the last 5-6 years, and you get drawn into this massive story, and it's almost like you're watching a movie, you know. I think you have to be a certain kind of artist to draw for Jonathan Hickman because of how elaborate and how the imagery he portrays out there. So it's kind of a big deal, and so I'm with Zach. I'm going to give it a 9 because it's just top notch, you know. It's top notch.
All right. Top notch, yeah.
Top notch, yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I thought that it was very, I guess, I haven't read a ton of X-Men. The only real X-Men I've read through and through was Age of Apocalypse, and that was awesome. But I didn't know what to expect with this. I know that Vinny was reading it and he was pushing it, and he bought the whole flower and like was growing the plant and everything. And I was, what does that have to do with anything? And then you read it and you realize, oh, it's Krakoa and everything. So this was just so unique, and it was such a relevant story arc. I feel like, because with current society struggle that we're facing with climate change, and like what's the plan for the future, and how long does the future give us, and it has like there's a finite idea behind life now, and there's a finite idea behind this, and and like how do you cope with that, and what's your solution, and I thought that really brought some really strong political and really like this life in-depth thought process to me, and I thought it was just really cool. Not what I expected. I thought that the characters were strong. Obviously they left out my boy, so that's a point docked right there. And the action was limited. That was one thing that I was hoping for a little bit more. There was the Strike Force whole scene, which was a great part. But other than that, it was a lot of discussion, debate, like theorizing, a lot of politics. And while that is very interesting and groundbreaking and unique, not always what I'm looking for from a comic, but at the same time, I read this, I read 90% of this in one day, in one sitting, just through and through, and I never got bored. I never got bored. I thought I was so into it the whole time. Like it was a really good read. So I gave it an 8. I felt like it could have used a little bit more action, and it didn't really have a finale, but it's not the end, so that's fair. Yeah, there's more to come. More to come. I guess I was just hoping for a little bit more on the action side, but the politics, the structure, the building a whole new universe, a whole new world. I didn't even know that he connected it to other story arcs before this, which is awesome. So yeah, I gave it an 8. So that rounds us up to an 8.7, which is a strong craft. That's a very good recommend to read. And it sounds like this is the future of X-Men for those out there that have any fandom towards the group. So I would definitely say if you want to know what's going to happen, and it's very cool to get in at a point where you can be there from the beginning, which is now. So get in now. Don't wait, because if you don't get in now, you're going to be lost and you'll never get in. And it's really, really exciting. I've never had this in my life before until I started this podcast, where you're in an arc while it's happening and being a part of the world while they enjoy it for the very first time. It's very, very exciting. So get in on this, 8.7, and that's might be a little shy of what it actually deserves. So great fucking story.
Money.
Straight cash, homie.
Straight cash.
All right. So that heads us into plugs. Anybody got anything they want to plug today? Zach, you got anything you want to shout out?
I want to shout out Hop Heroes. We work hard. We love you guys, and just keep rocking with us. Keep tweeting at us. Hashtag Hop Heroes Podcast, and just didn't fucking love you guys.
JR.
Not much. I mean, I'm gonna plug your local comic stores because I think this was actually the first time we read something that was not actually a trade or a combined book. We actually read this as close as we could to a release as possible, right? Like this is the newest book, so being able to buy all the comics and read it and then put it out there. So I think your local comic book stores, obviously Action City's my local comic book store. And we're able to do that. We're able to do this because of them, right? So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Support your local comic book store, 100%. And shout out to RS Figures. If you go to their website and you want to purchase any item, put in the secret code HOP Heroes, and you'll get free shipping on any purchase, $50 or more. They got a ton of dope items to check out. And yeah, as always, just follow us at Hop Heroes Pod, Instagram and Twitter. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube. And anything you want to tweet at us, just do the hashtag Hop Heroes Podcast, and we'll respond right away. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we are very excited for the upcoming shows. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Peace.